We have a special guest for today. She's a working mom and part of POSB's financial planning literacy team. Lynette, welcome to today's show.
Thank you for having me, Josh. Nice to be here.
So I'd like to dive right into it. What exactly does your team do in terms of the ideas and service? Does it see the marketing side of things?
So we are really a financial education arm within POSB. And our main objective is to educate customers on having good financial habits. And also how we do this is through content. So we write a lot about different aspects of financial planning, be it saving, managing debt, insurance, investing, or retirement planning.
I love the idea of financial habits because a lot of times, when we build a successful journey, it always starts with little building blocks.
That's correct.
And habits are what you do on a day-to-day basis.
Yes.
How you handle your first paycheck, which is some things which we'll discuss in a quick while. And I want to lead the discussion because I see bold headlines that a lot of Singaporeans, 42% even on one, that suggested that they are either not aware that they need to plan for retirement and finances, or they really don't care. So what would financial literacy really help from such a point of view, in your opinion?
I think for a lot of Singaporeans, they are very concerned with their day-to-day life in terms of money. Do I have enough to spend? Can I pay my bills? But when we talk about retirement, it's so far away that they feel like, I will have enough, by the time I reach there. But how can you be sure? I think some Singaporeans also have the mentality that I can rely on my CPF for my retirement. After all, that's the main goal of our CPF, right? But if we do not know how much exactly we need, then we cannot be sure that our CPF savings can cover those expenses when we retire. Talking about habits, we also want to start with, let's say, savings, which is really the basic. If you do not have consistent savings, then there's a lot of stuff that you cannot do, such as, getting the right insurance coverage for your family and yourself, growing your wealth through investing, and also saving for retirement. So,
I agree on that.
Yeah, correct. So I think money habits is really important because once you get the habits right, you do things consistently, you will see the results.
So if I were to probe, would you feel confident on your own retirement planning direction right now? And maybe you can share a bit more on what you do as habits all the way to leading up to doing the right things and getting the right direction going.
Okay, so for POSB, we really advocate our customers to adopt 4 money habits. So number 1, save. Save consistently, save at least 3 to 6 months of monthly expenses as emergency funds. Habit number 2, we have protect. So protect is to get the right insurance to cover your medical bills, TPD and death coverage, and also critical illness. After that, we have habit number 3, which is on growing your wealth. And lastly, we have retire. So each of these habits, actually, we have some benchmarks and rules of thumb to guide people towards, whether they know they are doing it right or doing enough. So when it comes to when you ask, like for me personally, savings, I'm very, very confident because I have a savings habit since I was young, inculcated by my mom. She always told me, saving is very important. And even when I was doing holiday jobs, she always asked me to allocate some money to savings and not just spend on whatever I want. Yeah, so I have built over the years a very consistent savings habit. In terms of insurance, I think it's a journey. Like when I actually started getting insurance when I was quite young. So straight after I graduated, I know that it's important. Also, my mom, who was the one who told me that, I kind of bought like a lot of different insurance plans.
Maybe I can quiz you firstly on the savings portion because I caught notice of something you mentioned. Saving at least 10% of your take-home pay. Then the first thing that struck to me is 10%. If take-home pay is $3,000, that's $300 to put into context.
Correct.
1 year, we can't build that much also. Is 10% too low or not?
Okay, you're not the first one to ask me this. I think when we set out with these rules of thumb for savings, right, we want to cover a wide spectrum of clients. And we also understand that everyone has different circumstances. And I think like as you go along the way, if you can, so that's why we say at least. Of course, you're welcome to save more, but we also want to caution against saving too much, because then you lose the value of your money to inflation, right? So we will suggest that, beyond your emergency cash, if you have a huge buffer of cash laying around, try to invest them rather than just save.
I think that gives a perspective to how much expenses. And I've done some research before that suggests that if you save maybe 50%, expenses 50%, savings 50%, you take like 17 years to get to financial freedom. So, nowadays there's a lot of financial independence discussion, ambition on that front. And I also acknowledge that everybody has different background, different liabilities that they have on hand.
Yes.
But I was really thinking, could we push that number to different spectrums? Yes, maybe at least 10%. But if you are not with mortgage and car yet, you should aim for something higher, like 25% or 30%.
Yeah.
Or is that something that you see achievable from many that you speak to, maybe when you do workshops and stuff?
I think with the number of questions, like with people asking me 10% is too little, right? I think there is definitely a capacity for people to save more. But as I mentioned earlier, I think we also want to caution against saving too much and not investing. Because when you save your money in a simple bank account, you are getting less than 1% of interest. With inflation rate at around 2 to 3%, effectively you're losing money, right? So that's why we want to encourage people to actually invest after they have saved enough emergency funds.
Okay, then let's touch on the investment portion. If I hear what you mentioned just now, that's under the grow segment.
Yes.
How you can grow whatever you've saved up and get investment rate of return to it.
Yes.
What would be a good approach, or what is your own journey so far? Maybe we can dig a bit deeper on that front.
Okay, I think generally how we advise to start, we're talking about starting. And I guess from your experience as well, you know that starting to invest is a difficult move. Just starting, a lot of people have a lot of questions. What are the risks I'm facing? Will I lose money? What kind of investment products should I invest in? There are so many different kinds, right? So for us, we try to make it simple for our customers to start. We actually advise them to use the DCA method, which is dollar cost averaging. So they can set aside, as low as $100 a month, put it in a broad-based ETF or unit trust so that they accumulate and invest consistently. And then, let compounding work its magic and invest over the long term.
I hear you mention broad-based.
Yeah.
That means also relates to a quote that I picked up that you mentioned before, that stop picking, maybe leave it to people who are very interested in it or the experts of it.
Yeah.
Has the stance changed in your journey so far? Or have you tried?
For me?
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. So I can tell you at the start of my financial journey, I was actually in a brokerage. So, brokerage is all about trading,
Yes.
right? Obviously, being in the environment, the first way I learned to invest is to buy stocks. Yeah. And most of the time, you hear what people say, and stock trends change over time. What may be popular 10 years back may not be popular now. So I would say at the start, I did invest in stocks. Some make money, some didn't. And of course, now that I'm a financial planning literacy specialist, I also learned to do the DCA method. In fact, my core portfolio is in DCA.
Okay, so if I were to probe deeper, on your own, sounds like the bulk of it is diversified,
Yes.
broad-based.
Yes.
Then only a little bit in stocks where maybe you have interest in them.
Yeah.
And you are maybe
Ride the trend, like tacticals. Yeah.
tactical. So it's a satellite approach, because
Yes,
that's been
correct.
known to be a core
satellite.
core and
Yes,
satellite approach.
correct, yeah.
Okay, so the bulk of it, keep it diversified so that if there's market swings, at least you know that you won't go to zero.
Yes, correct.
Any particular stock, the reality is it can become zero.
Yes,
But when
yes.
you're broad-based, then that gives you that peace of mind.
Yes.
Understand. So is that something that you also maybe preach to your own children? Like, do you build something with them?
Oh, my
or not?
child is very young. My child is only 6 years old. So
Okay.
I think at this point, we're just trying to get her to save.
Okay.
To start with the first habit,
But my boy is die already. So I'm also looking
Oh, you can
for...
start. Actually, I think I read some parenting blogs, and they say, they can actually start teaching the child how to invest, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
correct.
Around
And,
9-10 years old.
there's some ideas that you can do joint account with them.
Yes.
correct, right? Get it started straight and you can show them the journey.
Yes.
Personally, I also much prefer that versus contributing to CPF because that is just a compounding machine. You don't touch it, but there's no ups and downs, no failures, no big successes. And life's lessons are always coming from failures, biggest wins.
Okay.
Then you get a story, and that's what I also hope to.
That's true. But I guess, maybe I'm a little bit more conservative. So I do think that there is a place for contributing to their CPF for the long term. We start to contribute about $200 a month to our kids' CPF SA, right? They will accumulate more than 90,000 by the time they are 21. So that's a really big head start, I mean, like just 200 per month. And you don't even think about it. And it grows to almost like more than 90,000 is a lot. Yeah.
That's
so I think, for
compounding.
our kid, we can do a diversified approach as well. Like part of it goes to CPF and part of it goes to, trading and investing. Yeah.
Any parents listening in, right? Leave in the comments. What do you think?
Yeah.
Which side do you favor, or do you just buy an endowment plan only? They plan until 21.
That's also a good idea, right? Yeah.
Correct. Because endowment plans, you can get a defined period where it matures.
Yes.
To match university. Whereas investment, the journey, when you reach 21, maybe you're not too sure.
I think the difference between investing and buying into safer products is that you can, like let's say for endowment, you have your principal intact. So that's maybe a big concern for some parents. They want to be sure, like if they are saving for their kids' education, they want to be sure that, they preserve the capital. Yeah.
I also feel the runway is very long.
True.
So it's like, even if there's any economic crisis, 20 years, we'll definitely get past it already. Right? But again, it comes with their own experience, their own risk appetite.
Yeah.
Maybe in that sense. Yeah. I also want to quiz you a bit deeper. I read an article before from your team that you mentioned about how you manage bonuses, something like that. The right framework, setting monies for holidays, setting monies for investments. Could you touch a bit more on that piece?
So this, we do not have a framework, but I think what you read was actually from my own experience. Yeah, so earlier this year I had an interview about, how I spent my bonus. So I think everyone has their own way of spending, but it's good to actually, when you receive your bonus, sit down and think about how you want to allocate it. I think a lot of us were just like very happy that we have extra money. Some of us do not intentionally think about how we want to allocate that money. Sometimes it just sits in the bank account. Or others maybe their first thought will be, I can buy this or that. So to prevent us from spending on impulse, I think it's good to firstly sit down and think about how you want to allocate it. So for myself, one of the main things I do when my bonus come in is to find ways to optimize my taxes. So I do that via CPF top-ups for myself and for my mom. I also put it into SRS, and then I invest my funds from SRS. Then, of course, I treat my family to a holiday. Yeah.
Maybe you can touch SRS is Supplementary Retirement Scheme, something that I'm also a big advocate of, open with our 3 local banks. So in terms of tax, I think this is now the right season.
Yeah.
Put the relevant top-ups and stuff.
Yeah.
So I also hear that you top up for your mom.
Yes.
That one is to MediSave or to...
No, so using the retirement sum topping up scheme.
Okay.
Yeah.
So once they are under the full retirement sum, then it's eligible.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So for us, I think for CPF top up, we have a maximum of 16,000 tax relief that we can get. So 8,000 to your own and 8,000 to a loved one's CPF. Yeah.
I think loved one defined as spouse, parents.
Spouse and parents, not your child.
Yeah, I think there's a common misconception.
Yeah.
The top up for a child has no tax relief.
Yes, correct.
So it's mainly in these 2 spaces.
Yes.
And I've heard of this theory of financial thermostat, which means that once you're used to an amount, then a big amount comes in, you're very shocked, that feeling. Then that's where your thermostat becomes, I'm quite wealthy, I have more than enough.
Yeah.
And that's where the impulse of purchases comes in. Whether it's to upgrade your car, whether it's to splurge it on a bag, something like that, starts to come in.
Yes.
So I also do believe that as and when that money comes in, think very carefully first how you want to allocate it.
Yeah.
And the faster you move it out to the right avenues, the faster you prevent yourself from feeling that sense of wealthiness.
Yeah. I think for those who are still trying to build up their emergency funds, the bonus is a good time. Yeah. So like, if you have not saved 3 to 6 months of your monthly expenses, then use that bonus to actually shore up your emergency funds first. And then for the rest, if it's like excess funds, put it to investment.
Very often on the channel, I also hear people discuss about war chest cash, which is monies that you are willing to deploy when markets come tumbling down.
Yes.
That's above and beyond your emergency cash, which should not be deployed to markets.
Correct.
It should be very liquid assets, bank accounts or Singapore savings bonds.
Yes.
Those that you can access and have guarantees.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on war chest cash, and maybe what do you practice on your own?
I think for war chest cash, as you mentioned, you have to put it in something more liquid while still getting more than your 1% from your bank account. So it can be putting that excess amount in a high yield savings account, or it can be your Singapore savings bonds.
Do you actively do that also? Like if like COVID crash, move some of the monies from the high yield savings account and go and buy into broad-based equities also, like?
I think in the last few years, I haven't seen like a huge crash. Or let's say when you talk about the COVID crash, I was actually caught in it. So I was hesitant to put in more money because I already had stocks that I didn't pick very well inside. And so like I actually put more into DCA. Okay. So in that way, yes, I'm deploying more cash to a war chest, but diversify.
Understand.
Yeah.
My experience was that crash in 2020, we look at it, right? It was a rapid dip from January to March.
Yes.
Then after that, it kind of V-shaped, went up already. And a lot of times the DCA, if you do it on a monthly basis, you didn't really pick too many downs on the thing up. So increasingly, I'm thinking, should DCA be a faster pace, like a half monthly or a weekly?
Of course, I mean, it depends on how much cash you have to put in also, right? But I think the point of doing DCA is to ensure that you stay invested for a long time. Yeah, because when we talk about investing, we really want to advocate for customers to think 10 years at least. Yeah. So, if you look at, you have been looking at the markets and you know that, over 10 years, 20 years, the market just trends up most of the time. Yeah. So in that sense, it doesn't really matter how often you DCA. You just want to ride out that volatility and be able to sleep at night. Yeah.
It definitely is a good way to acclimatize to a bigger amount, right? So someone who is new to investing, if you have a lump sum coming in, 100,000, you start deploying, it gets scary.
Yes.
Because a 30% drop is minus 30%.
Yes.
But you slowly put 10,000 for 10 months, you get used to the swings a bit better.
So it's time in the market and not timing the market.
Absolutely on that front. Maybe I can switch gears also to protect, because I caught you mentioned something about protection.
Yes.
Or some mistakes maybe or plans that you bought previously. Maybe what are immediate tips that you would like to share on that front?
I think for protection, we always start with something essential. So I would say getting an integrated shield plan that covers. Again, it depends on your needs also, but at least to cover the excess that your MediShield cannot cover. It's also up to what's your budget like, I think. So hospitalization plans are always the first in mind. Next, if you have extra cash, look at critical illness coverage. I think because with the advance in technology and people going more for health screening, you are able to detect illnesses earlier. So having, that CI protection can actually help you to not think about the recovery process. You have cash to help you. And we also tend to recover better because the advancement in health tech. So for critical illness coverage, we advocate 4 times your annual income for the coverage amount. Other than that, if you have dependents, like we have children or elderly parents who are depending on our income, it's good to have at least 9 times your annual income for the coverage.
How can we tailor these rule of thumbs to different segments of market? Is it fair to say that if you are without dependents, that means a single, no kids, then maybe you may not need the death cover?
Correct. Yes, that's actually what we feel. Because death coverage is essentially to leave money behind for people who were dependent on you when you were still around. So if you don't have children or elderly parents who need your income, then actually there's not really a need for death coverage.
So then that case, if we are on that track, it should be just critical illness. Make sure that
I think critical illness,
right level.
Critical illness, your hospitalization plan. If you want, you can also look at getting a cashew supplement, which is more for a disability cover.
Yes.
Yeah.
That can be used by MediSave for large amounts also, right?
Yes, correct.
Correct. Then on that front, mistakes and blind spots, anything to round out the chapter on protection or not? How did it probably differ?
Okay, so I think a lot of people two main mistakes. One is not getting coverage. A lot of people may think that insurance is a waste of money. You know, they feel like, I pay the premium every year. Actually, I don't claim anything. It's like wasting money, right? But I think it's really the shifting that risk to an insurer, you know, when the unfortunate happen, you have something to rely on. So it's good to get the coverage early so that you are, we tend to be healthier when we are younger, and we really cannot exclude that we don't need the insurance because you will only know when you need it, right? Yeah. So I think that's really one mentality to change. Don't think that you're wasting money. You're actually being covered for that year when you pay your premium.
So that expense is well needed.
Yeah.
To make sure the rest of the equation would fall in place, right?
Yes, correct. Yeah. And then the other mistake is that some people on the other spectrum, too kiasu, they want to cover as much as they can. So that's when you may overspend on insurance. So on that part, our guideline is to not spend more than 15% of your monthly paycheck on insurance, purely for protection. So we are excluding
savings vehicles
or investment products.
So pure protection, cap it within 15%. You believe that will not interfere too much with the other savings goals.
Yes, correct.
Kind of idea.
Yeah.
Then allocate that 15% based on each individual circumstance.
Yes.
If you have a big mortgage, make sure that it matches
Covers
your death
mortgage,
cover.
yes.
If you have income to protect for kids and stuff, the critical illness portion kicks in.
Yes.
Understand?
Yeah.
Then this portion is to protect a person's wealth while they build towards retirement, which is our last key habit.
Yes.
And in terms of retirement, it's always a personal passion of mine to look at all angles of things. For retirement-wise, right, what are key rule of thumbs that you would like to suggest?
Okay, so for us, we have two key rule of thumbs for retirement. One is to at least hit your CPF full retirement sum. So that's one. Then the second one is to have multiple income flows for your retirement. So in other words, don't just depend on your CPF. Yeah.
Okay, so hit FRS, which I'll quiz a bit later, and have multiple income streams.
Yes.
Can elaborate deeper on how does one approach this?
Okay, so multiple income streams. So just now we talked about supplementary retirement scheme, right? So that can be considered one income stream because you're going to DQ when you reach retirement, right? Yeah, so that can be one. Other than that, you can also look at annuities. You can also look at still consider investing if you have the capacity when you're in retirement, or even now you can start to build up an extra income stream for retirement. But to keep in mind that it depends on your age as well. So let's say you started retirement planning much younger, maybe in your early 30s, you can stomach a higher risk, and you can also set aside a greater amount towards your retirement income stream, right? So maybe you want to invest in something that is slightly more risky for potentially higher returns. But let's say you are maybe in your late 40s or early 50s, and you still want to build an extra income stream, then maybe you can look at something safer, and because you have a shorter investment horizon, maybe an income fund, to build income, but taking less risk.
And ending on property, because property could also be a component.
Yeah, so
right?
I think Singaporeans are very big on property, I know, and properties are really expensive as well. So I think with regards to retirement, the ideal is that you finish paying off your mortgage. by the time you retire, so that you don't have to keep paying mortgage even when you're not drawing an income. So that's one. Other than that, I think we can also think about ways to monetize our property when we retire. So for instance, we know that, Singaporeans, they are very asset rich, cash poor, for some people. So how you can utilize your property for retirement, there are many ways. Renting out a room, a spare room. You can downsize. You can also make use of some of the government schemes to help you where you sell, like the lease buyback scheme.
For HDB flats.
Yes, correct. Yeah. So there are many ways. So like if you are staying in a private estate, you can, and you don't need the space or the luxury, you can actually downsize to a HDB and enjoy the extra cash and use it for something else.
Then for planning tools, right? Are there any digital planning tools that you have seen before or your platform has?
Yeah, so
that can help on that front?
For POSB, when you log into DigiBank, at the bottom right, there's actually a plan tab. So this is a really good one view you can have of your finances. So if you choose to sync up all your financial data with us, we can actually have your savings. You can have a look of your savings account across different banks. You can have your insurance all into one view, and we actually can even tell you whether you have enough coverage for the different parts. So we can also look at our own investments, those that are seated with CDP, and of course your CPF amount as well. So it's really good one view of how you are doing in terms of your finances. And sometimes it can also even recommend next steps. So for instance, if you decide to sync your CPF data and then you want to do some projections to see whether you have enough during your retirement, there are actually and if the app tells you that you actually have a gap between what you forecast for your expenses and how your retirement income is like, there are actually ways that you can suggest for you to take steps to close that gap.
Okay, noted. Then on that front, seems like it covers a lot of aspects.
Yeah.
I haven't explored it.
Yeah,
too
you should
deeply,
try it. It's really good because I think before we have this, our financial data is kind of everywhere.
Yes.
I buy insurance with different insurance agents. It may not be just one company as well, right? Then you have bank accounts. A lot of us have more than one bank account. It can be with different banks. And then, of course, investment is another thing. It can be investment everywhere with different brokerage and all that. So when you can actually consolidate, you actually have a better view instead of, doing manually by Excel and all that. And on the more, I think on a daily basis, let's say for your expenses, it can also track your expenses. So you don't have to manually use a different app.
Because you've used it, right, I guess?
Yeah.
Are there any limitations of using that thing in terms of projections and stuff? Would it come up with a number that we can rely on closely? I
think because if you sync your data, let's say we talk about retirement planning, right? If you sync your CPF data, actually it's using the data from your CPF. So it's pretty accurate. Okay,
so with that you can actually map out 5 years, 10 years, what you need to work towards.
Yes, correct.
And use that as a guide to kind of...
Yeah, and I think what's great is that it actually suggests actionable steps for you. So, let's say, for example, if you look at your current expenses and you project that, okay, in during my retirement, I need maybe 4,000 a month. Using your current CPF data, actually by the time, can your CPF actually cover these 4,000? If not, what are your other income streams? So it will actually even use, currently your investments. Will it be able to grow at that rate to match that gap that you have?
Are we able to input assumptions inside like inflation and investment?
So for inflation, we already put in an assumption of 3.5%, which is quite conservative because, rates are coming down. Average.
I was thinking it's quite aggressive, 3.5%.
Yeah, correct. I mean, conservative in the sense that we are actually overcompensating, Sorry. So there are certain assumptions input there for, let's say, if you're investing in equities, what are the percentage growth that we are looking at? If you are investing in T-bills, what is the percentage growth we are looking at? Yeah.
So even CPF can be inputted into the equation itself.
Yeah.
And maybe I can lead on the next topic to CPF changes for next year. I've heard quite a few things. CPF is a foundation layer. You mentioned some things about full retirement sum. Maybe let me pick on that idea again. In terms of rule of thumb, you mentioned FRS is something to aim towards.
Yes.
What are your thoughts of the new change in, because there's enhanced retirement sum coming, correct? Which is previously was 1.5x of full retirement sum. Now it's going to be 2x.
Yes.
Would you be a fan of topping up to 2 times enhanced retirement sum? Personally, or maybe from a team wise?
I'm a fan.
Okay.
Yes. I think I know when the news came out, a lot of people were kind of, not quite happy that they have to actually put in the money and they can't earn the higher interest rate from their SA. I think it's a good thing because when it comes to retirement, we need certainty in terms of the amount that we need. If you top up to ERS, so as you have known, by next year, if you top up to the full ERS, a person can actually get about 3,300 when they are 65 years old. So I think 3,300 is quite comfortable using today's standard. And if you have another income stream, so let's say you also do your SRS, assuming that, you withdraw your SRS 40,000 a year, that's where you don't have to pay extra taxes, right? That gives you a very comfortable retirement sum of close to 6,000 a month. I mean, to me, at least.
But the CPF comes at 65, what?
Yeah.
If I want to retire at 55, then there's still some work to do.
Yes, definitely. There's still some work to do. I think, when it comes to retirement, really, when you want to retire is also a personal preference.
Yeah.
I think more and more we see that retirees also have a dilemma, after I retire, what do I do? I mean, definitely you can say, I want to travel the world and all that. Do you expect to travel for 30 years? Right? And then more and more we are seeing people who say that, how they approach retirement is that I will maybe do some part-time work. I don't fully retire, so I still have some income. I still socialize. I'm still, socially active and contributing to society. So it really depends on what are your retirement goals. I think when it comes to retirement, we always focus just on money. But there are also other aspects, right? What are you going to do when you retire? You don't want to just sit at home, watch TV the whole day also. So what are the plans and how do you fund those plans as well? Yeah.
In the previous podcast, maybe I can share a bit also. The guest mentioned to set a retirement date instead of retirement amount. That means if I want to retire by 58, for example, then his approach was try to get there as best as you can versus, I need 1 million or I need 2 million.
Okay.
Because a lot of times we discuss, I want big sums.
Yeah.
That we can't get there, we keep delaying their retirement.
Okay.
Where everything else in life will change. Children will grow up.
Yes.
Parents may not be around that you want to spend time with. So I heard that and it was quite refreshing. Set a target and then you do your best. What is your gut feeling on such a point of view? Maybe it's an interesting.
So you mean
rounding.
target age to retire?
Correct.
To retire and do your best in terms of amassing wealth, is it?
Correct. Amassing wealth to reach that.
Okay.
So even if you fall short, there's just an adjustment of expenses. Correct.
Okay.
What are your thoughts of setting a defined date rather than defined amount?
Okay, that's like you say, quite refreshing. But I think we cannot really predict many things. So to set a date, it's really hard to know what kind of curveballs life throws us before that date. What happens if, something unfortunate happens, I can't work anymore. I can't really reach that date and amass wealth along the way.
But then the set target amount will also not meet, right? That's where our protection comes in terms of money habits. It's assuming we are still working, don't get retrenched, still able to. But you reach that date already, then not bad already lah. Kind of thing. Because it's never enough on it, that feeling.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah. I think it's sometimes it's also up to us to adjust the mindset, right? I think we can have a goal, but it's also about what happens. I think it's about getting prepared. So let's say, for example, if your example of setting a date, and if you have done your best and you know that at least you have some of your main expenses covered, you covered your needs, or your CPF, you have reached your full retirement sum, you know that, okay, at least I have this amount when I retire, then I think you are more or less okay to retire, right? Yeah. I think especially for retirement, you just want to ensure that you have enough on a monthly basis to get you through your needs and maybe a little bit for your expenses.
I love that. So needs and expenses wise, everything can still be fine-tuned.
Yes,
in retirement also.
Yeah.
Many a times we worry, go to retirement, I want the same lifestyle. Hey, but then you have that time.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be taking taxi already. You would
Correct.
be walking.
Yes,
And
yes.
a lot of the expenses could be reshaped.
So I think one of the things that we ask our customers to think about is looking at your current lifestyle now. Can you map out what are your needs? What is the minimum income floor you need? Yeah.
That's
so
good.
let's say, for example, to cover my needs, I need $3,000 a month. And then if I envision my retirement to be a moderate, I wouldn't say luxurious, maybe I will need an extra 1,500 for traveling per month. Okay. So that makes up 4,500 for my expenses. So can I use my CPF or guaranteed income flows to fund the needs and then for my investments to fund the wants? So that's how we actually think about it. So to cover the needs first, you need your guaranteed income flow. So these are non-negotiables, right? Because they are needs, right? So get your CPF to cover that. And if it's not enough, find other ways, other income sources which preserve the capital and to be able to fund the needs first.
So minimum income floor is, if I interpret it correctly, is the core expenses.
Yes, correct. Your needs lah. Yeah.
Things that you need to function from a day-to-day perspective.
Correct. Yeah.
I think it's a good rounding point also for everybody.
Yeah.
Aim for that, and then everything else can be for your wants.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Lynette, for today's discussion. And as always, if you are listening in, you have questions for us, leave that in comment sections, and together we'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you.
Take care. Goodbye.